Welcome, friends, to the Process Podcast. Today, we are talking about mine and Ed's experience doing the Asia Fitness Championship. It's the biggest CrossFit competitive event in Asia, we would say. And with it being such a big event and our first individual competition in quite a while, what it was like preparing for that, what it was like turning that preparation into execution, and how we feel about ourselves as athletes and people afterwards. On a personal note, anytime I have a conversation with Ed on the podcast, it's a difficult conversation because I'm talking about things that I have not resolved with myself. And for Ed, it's talking about things that he has not articulated to anyone before. So for both of us, we've had really powerful realizations, and hopefully this helps you as a person who is competing or is valuing training to look at why you're doing what you're doing and to have intention. So if there's a keyword of today, it is intention, and I intend for you to learn things very well in today's podcast. Enjoy, listen up, and Merry Christmas. Welcome to the Process Podcast. Ed.
Hi, Chris.
How are you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Do you feel festive today?
I feel very festive, yes.
Any reason why?
Well, it's December and Christmas is a week away. So
right.
Why wouldn't I be festive? Are you feeling festive today?
I'm feeling pretty festive, like more than usual.
Yeah, you got a beanie and a thick hat on.
Yeah, I'm going to take this one off and just go fully cool.
Okay, well, I'm gonna keep mine on.
That's cool. It looks good on you.
Yeah,
I'm
thanks.
like, factually speaking, that was not a good look for me. So.
It was better than what I'm currently looking at.
What is wrong with this beanie?
It's a nice beanie.
Mm-hmm.
What's with the style with the like 45-degree angle? Why are you covering one ear?
No,
genuine question. Genuine question. Like, I understand, like in hip hop, you roll one leg up and you keep one leg long. Is that what this is about?
Yeah, this is hip hop.
Yeah, nice. You just basically the right ear stays out, the left ear is under.
I always liked when like beanies are tilted. It just feels good to me. Like I like the contact of one ear being warm, the other ear being alert for all things. Okay.
It's like one leg out under the covers.
Yeah. However, I will never do the condom tip thing with the beanie. I don't know why people do that.
What's that? We leave it not tight on the head?
Where it's like there's a lot of stuff on top and it's folded and it just looks like a condom tip.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that's all about. That one I don't get.
Yeah.
I
do that sometimes.
Oh, that's cool, man. It's fine. That looks cool.
Yeah. Now I understand the context of why you do that. All good.
All good. What are we talking about today, Ed, besides beanies?
I think we're talking about AFC. It was our first podcast back recording for a few weeks.
That's right.
We were obviously away for the Asia Fitness Championships, and our good friend, Mr. 2.0, who stands behind the camera, kind of, he was away.
Yeah.
And so getting back into the groove of recording some podcasts again. And I think the biggest event that's happened since we last recorded was you and I both stepped back into the competition arena in Shanghai with 21 other process programming athletes, and we competed at the Asia Fitness Championship.
That's right.
And I think it will be cool for us to sit down and talk about what that whole experience was from leading up to the competition, during the competition, and then I think reflections post-comp, because we've had some good conversations about that.
That's right. So like you were saying, it's been a while for both of us. For me, not so much, because I did semifinals in May in Busan with a team.
True.
But I guess this is the first time. I mean, I would say the stimulus is different and the pressure is different and the way you handle things are different when you're doing this alone. So in terms of the way that I do CrossFit.
You're talking about team versus individual.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I kind of prefer doing the individual stuff just because I don't want to be a liability on the team. Like I just don't like that feeling.
You know what's interesting there is a lot of people who say they prefer individual to team is they don't like the idea of other people being liabilities to them.
Yeah.
They don't like the idea of other people getting in the way of their own performance. Yeah. You're actually taking it the other way around.
You could probably tell why. It's because I'm a people pleaser and I don't want to disappoint anyone.
Yeah.
So if there's ever an opportunity for me to not have to disappoint someone, meaning not being on their team, I'll go for that.
Interesting.
Yeah. In any case, it's been a while for the both of us to do this. So AFC, I guess to give a little bit of context, those who don't know about it, it's the Asia Fitness Championship. It's been going on in Shanghai, in China for the last quite a few years. Yeah. I mean, the biggest probably breakout year was 2019 when it became a sanctional event. That's the year that Brett Fikowski and Mayhem
finished on the podium.
And finished on the podium.
Yeah, finished third. He'd already qualified to the games that year. That was the year of the national champions.
Ah, yes.
So he'd already booked his spot. 2018, I think it was actually. He'd already booked a spot, but he still went and finished third, beating lots of other games athletes. It's really cool.
Yeah. So that's where the AFC, I guess, got really big in that sense. And now it's an annual event, probably the biggest one, definitely the biggest one in China, and one of the bigger events in Asia in terms of really the spectacle.
I'd say it's got to be the biggest.
Yeah.
What would be a bigger event in Asia? Semi-finals.
Yeah, I guess if you are talking about what is the biggest event in CrossFit, because it is semifinals and because it's leading up to the games, semifinals would be it, right?
I would say though, in terms of the venue, the spectators, and like the professionalism of the event, I would say that Asia Fitness Championship smashed the Far East Throwdown. Far East Throwdown is great, but I just think they just took it to a whole new level. Yeah, I would say in many ways it's almost on par with like the CrossFit Games.
Hard to agree there. And, you know, if you are a person who likes to compete in the sport of CrossFit and you are in Asia, you definitely should add the AFC as part of your season schedule if that's something you find important, those in-person
I think it's like we have, especially you and I as masters athletes, you know, you've got finite opportunities to put your body through the intensity, I think, volume, and, you know, you're leaving family, I'm leaving my business and my family as well for a few days. Like, you know, you got to really pick and choose which of these competitions you decide to go to. And for me personally, you know, something that I was really thinking about when I chose this comp was, okay, well, if I'm only probably going to do one competition a year, maybe two, not necessarily two CrossFit comps, but a competition of some sort. Right. I want to go for like the most memorable experience. And what I'm thinking about in that sense, not so much my result or my placing, but I'm thinking like something that's just different, you know, something kind of like out this world that I know there's something where they're really going to look after the athlete, try and give the athlete an amazing experience. I also want to think about like camaraderie. I want to be going down with people that I know and having like, you know, this bonding experience. Right. You know, the idea of like traveling overseas and just being by myself doesn't really interest me as much these days. It's just as much almost about the social side of things as it is, as well as the competition. You know, how far away it is, like, is it accessible? Shanghai kind of ticked all those boxes for me. So yeah, you know, if I was going to, if you're like myself and those are things that are important to you, then I would say 100% a competition you should put down in the calendar for next year to try and qualify for.
Yeah. And I would say, just like you said, it would probably be an annual thing for me. If we're looking at the calendar year as the way you look at your season, it's a great cap off. You know, this year it was in December, last year it was in October, but it's always in the tail end of the year anyway. So it's a great way to kind of cap off your year of CrossFit, as it were.
So why did you decide to sign up to this comp?
Honestly, it was because the qualifiers came up and they just looked really fun. And I wasn't sure if I was in a physical or mental mood to do it, because I had just gotten back from a few months on the build program and slowly getting into CrossFit. And at the time I was just enjoying training for the sake of training and not really looking for a competition, which is the first time in a while where I felt content with that. But when the qualifiers came out and when our team did that promo video for qualifying workout number 2, I don't know, all these little things just got me fired up for doing it. And you know, when you're training with people who are also doing this thing, it kind of encourages you to at least do the qualifiers. What's the hurt in that? And I think qualifiers for masters athletes was free even. So it didn't seem like there was any risk involved other than feeling, you know, tired or whatever. So it seemed like a no-brainer for me. Was that the same way for you?
So hang on. So what you're saying there is that all you've really talked about is the qualifiers.
Yeah.
So they basically, you saw 3 fun workouts. Yeah. We made a stupid video because, you know, I'd written the second workout. Right. So we wanted to kind of do a bit of our own little fun promo for it. Yeah. So those are the only 2 reasons why you actually decided to sign up for the comp.
I guess that's the reason why I signed up for the qualifiers.
Ahead to Shanghai or?
Believe it or not, I'm a little bit kind of in the moment. So when I thought about, okay, if I qualified, let's see what happens. And when the competition dates were released, that was like my birthday weekend. Yeah. And I was trying to figure out with my family. I've never spent my birthday without them before, ever since I had a family. I'm talking about like my wife and my kids. And I needed to figure out, all right, do we all go together or does my wife go with me? If I'm going alone, is it worth going? And then I just felt like it might be a great way to celebrate turning 39.
Yeah.
And also, the other part that was important to me was actually preparing for it. Last year, I kind of flew in blindly, like literally, right? Because I made a last minute decision to join the competition.
You got massive FOMO when
A
you
little
saw
bit,
me wearing a
a
Chris
little bit,
Toise
yeah.
shirt.
So Ed came in on check-in as on check-in day as a coach, and he put on my shirt and he posted about it, not like on Instagram, but he sent me the photo, and I was a little bit incensed just because I should be there, and my name is on a shirt. I should be there and show up with my body in that shirt. So that's what I did. Is I took a early morning flight and then was late to the first event, but I was able to get in. This year, knowing that I have time to prepare, I wanted to actually do simulations the weekends before and make sure that my body is primed for hard workouts Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday recovery, and like actually approach this like an athlete.
Like a comp, yeah.
Like a competitive athlete doing 50% simulations and 75% and 100%, and then scaling it back and watching the videos, doing my homework, and really picking it apart in a very serious and methodical fashion, and to see what the results would be.
Had you ever done that before with a comp? No, you always kind of just rock up to comps and just do them.
Well, I've done like semi simulations, but I think I'm a little bit of a CrossFit like minded person in the sense that I don't want to do workouts again and again and again. I want it to be constantly varied. I want my training to be different every time, not like random, but I want the variety there where I have a gymnastics day and a strength day and a plyometrics day. But with this one, and I think you were in the same situation, I was doing the same workouts for about 3-4 weeks all the time, or some version of it, or some pieces of it as skill work. And it became very, very repetitive.
Yeah.
And I wasn't super into that, but it was for the greater good. One thing that I realized watching the Olympics this year is when people are at the top level of anything, not to say that I wanted to be at the top level or that I was close to it, but if you want to do your best in a thing, then most of the time you're just doing that thing, right? Like pole vaulters.
Pole vault, yeah.
Right. They're not like snatching all the time to get better at pole vault. They're just pole vaulting all the time, doing skill work with pole vault, doing repetitive things. So why can't we do the same?
I wanted to quickly interrupt this episode with a quick shout out to our sponsors, Today Well Spent. I've been using this journal for 2 years and it has made a massive impact on my physical, but mostly my mental well-being. It is a guided journal backed by neuro and behavioral science, which I actually didn't know at the time. It has questions for you to answer at the start of the day, at the end of the day, end of every week, end of every month. And it's brought so much self-awareness to me of the things that positively and negatively impact my life. So if you're someone who cares about your physical and your mental well-being, which I think you do because you listen to this podcast, then go and grab yourself a Today Well Spent. Use the discount code THEPROCESS, one word in capitals, to get your discount. I think CrossFitters struggle with the idea of repetition.
Yeah.
It's what probably attracts a lot of people to CrossFit in the first place.
Sure.
Is the nature of just the constantly varied, always doing something different. And the moment you ask a CrossFitter, I mean, you know what it's like, right? You write a 3-week progression in a program of the same thing, and by week 3, everyone's like, sick of this.
Yeah.
Give me something else. And I get it. But to truly, it's a law of specificity, right? We always talk about it. If you want to get really good at one thing, then you need to do the one thing.
Right.
And that should be the majority of the thing that you're doing all the time. And constantly vary doing everything else isn't going to be, it's good at getting you good at everything else, but it's not good at getting you that thing.
Well, then, I mean, you as both the head coach and programmer for the Process programming, but also a competitor for this event, how did you walk into that preparation phase knowing that you would be very specific and very repetitive in your preparation?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I don't have any problem with doing the same thing over again because I understand the benefits of it. I'm educated to know why this is the right way to go about it. However, like you said, I still got bored of doing it.
Yeah.
So I think there is just this, and I think kind of as I got to the final couple of weeks, I think you and I were feeling the same thing. I actually got to the point where I was like, well, I know probably the best thing for me to do is to do another, 50% simulation of this thing or break it down again. But remembering that there's another goal for me here, which is that I'm not taking this thing so, very seriously. This is not the be all and end all of, my 2024. And therefore having fun in training and enjoying the training process is also a high priority for me.
Yeah.
So when I started to feel that this was becoming a bit of a drag and I was not getting fired up for sessions, I was like, okay, you know what? I should really be doing a simulation. but I'm actually going to do something different today. And so I kind of just, would just jump in the compete program or just join everyone else for something a little bit different. Even though I knew, I was accepting that this is probably not the best thing for me if I really want to get myself ready for the comp. But then mentally, it felt better for me to not force myself to do that thing and instead have a bit of fun.
But also it wasn't going to become a physical interference to the overall goal, right? Like you wouldn't be, if it was a snatch day or whatever, something that wasn't part of AFC, you'd still do it, but you wouldn't do it at that same intensity.
Yeah. And for sure. Like, so basically what you're saying is that by me going off plan and not doing the simulations, it wasn't potentially harming me.
Right.
But I mean, potentially, because when you're doing the same things over and over again, it also means there's a lot of things you're not doing in your training.
Right.
So if you suddenly throw in one of those things that you haven't been doing, you can pull up with like, muscle soreness and DOMs because your body just hasn't been adapted to it.
Right.
Or there's like an increased chance of injury because just haven't been doing that movement for the last 3. So I definitely knew that was a potential risk as well, but accepted it because bigger picture, training has to be fun. I want to be enjoying it. And I want to kind of prioritize this competition as well. So just kind of juggling all of that.
So walking into it, did you have any clear goals in mind for the competition?
Okay, so I think this is a good conversation for us both to have, right? Which is like, what were the objectives? So, I mean, you still haven't really answered my question as to why you signed up for AFC, to be honest.
I think that's probably a holdover of how I feel about the competition in general, I guess, right? But I think the reason why I wanted to compete was I thought that I could show up on a larger stage and prove to myself and prove on the leaderboard that I'm actually like a good athlete. I don't know how that means in specific terms.
Did you want the leaderboard to validate the hard work and the training that you put in? Was that kind of what you were looking for?
To an extent, right? Like, you can look back and say, did I give my all? Was I smart with the way I paced that? Did everything I do in preparation to it with the simulations, did I apply those lessons and stay on that plan, or did I let things fall apart and stuff like that?
But where's the leaderboard come into
that? Because
what if you do all those things?
Yeah.
But then on the leaderboard, you're still dead last.
Yes. And that is also another point of conversation about like the during the competition that I guess I want to talk about. But before we get to that, for me, it was, I don't know. I have this thing of if I'm in the final heat, then I feel like I belong. In the sense that if I'm not in the final heat, then I feel like I'm not really hanging to the standard of competition. Even though the heats are there, then you belong there, right? By virtue of qualifying on the online qualifier and stuff like that. It just, in my head, I have this like pedestal for being in the final heat. It's like one that people want to watch.
Also, you don't want to be in the bottom heat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which for us is 2 heats. So if you're not in the first heat, you're in the last heat.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
So I wanted to ensure or do the best I could to prove that like I should be doing this, I guess. Like,
so then if I ask you another question.
Yeah.
So if you're not in the top heat, is the answer then you shouldn't be doing this?
I guess it's complicated. It's like, I don't know how to have that conversation with myself. Is why am I doing this? Right. If, for example, if I'm there to do my best, but it's not really going to have any results in terms of
do your best, but the leaderboard doesn't matter at all.
Yeah. I guess I could do that and, make connections, and I did, and, be there for the community, which I was. Those are all good things, but then I don't think I was really clear on my objectives with myself. So it made it really hard to kind of juggle the feelings that I have of disappointing performance, right? If you're clear, and that's my advice. If you're not clear about why you're there, then you're going to have a really complicated set of days while you're there of how to approach the highs and lows.
If the way that the competition goes is not in line with your intentions, then it's going to be complicated.
Yeah.
That's tough. Because if your intentions are genuinely, I just want to win, and you're winning, then So I get what you're saying. I 100% agree though. Intention's very important.
Yeah.
So I think you'd asked me what was my intention going into it.
Yeah.
I think so. The reason I signed up to the competition, number one, I haven't done an in-person competition in a very long time. But what the in-person competition represents to me is picking a goal and working towards it.
Right.
That's really what it represents. Picking a hard, uncomfortable, challenging goal. What's going to be uncomfortable and challenging about it for me is the fact that, okay, I'm going to have to push harder than I go in training, right? That's a given. I don't train very hard. Everyone around me knows that. I know if I sign up for a comp, I need to be ready to like throw my body into battle. So that's why it's going to be hard. I'm going to be taking time out from work. I'm going to be, in an arena with people watching. Challenges come from that. I've got to have a judge judging my repetitions. So I knew that I was just in a point in my life where I hadn't done a hard physical challenge, set a goal and worked towards it in a long time. And I know that's important because I do that a lot in other aspects of my life professionally. I set goals all the time and try to work towards these goals. I used to set physical goals like competitions all the time. And I always really liked like the intense focus in the build up. And then it all culminates on one day or one weekend. And there's this like euphoric feeling or like opportunity for learning that comes after. I've always really loved that about sport and competition. And I haven't done it in so long. I haven't done it in 4 years.
Yeah.
So a part of me was, okay, I want to feel this again. I want to set a goal, work towards it, and have this cool opportunity for learning. Also, I wanted to see if my body could do it. Genuinely, like I have talked about this a lot on my social media, but I think I have just told myself over the last 4 years that, Ed, you're old, you're soft, you can't handle hard shit anymore. Stop pushing your body so hard. And I basically, come up with this narrative in my head that I should just be doing easy stuff.
Yeah.
And, I had followed some people in, coaches and mentors in the training space who very much kind of like believed in that. And I think just listening to them and seeing them for a long time and following them, I think their just kind of message had like infiltrated into my mind.
Yeah.
And then, in the latter half of this year, I started reading more studies about, basically as we're re-looking at doing the energy system course, right? For the individual coaching course, reading a lot of studies and papers on the importance of really, really hard training. Of course, like bearing in mind, this has to be someone who can handle it, but just the potent health effects that come from it. And this is all stuff I knew. It's not new stuff, but I had just, we put our own filter on things, right? And I hadn't really just opened my eyes to just, I was missing out on this whole nother training aspect that because of my narrative. So
it also like maybe you just didn't have the desire to go?
Also didn't have the desire, but I think the desire came from the fact that I was telling myself that if I did this thing, it's going to be really hard on my body and it's going to have a really negative impact to everything else. So I think I don't know which one's a chicken and which one's the egg, right? But anyway, so I started just doing harder training anyway. I was like, okay, I'm going to commit to the compete program. I stopped cherry picking my workout, stopped skipping Saturday testers. I'm just going to do this for a few weeks and see if I can do it. So I made that commitment before AFC. And week 1, sure enough, felt like shit. Week 2, I was like, everything in me wanted to be like, see, it told you, Ed, you can't handle hard stuff. But I'm like, nope, I made this commitment. I'm going to push again. Pushed through week 2 and got to week 3. I was like, oh, that was way better than week 1. Let me push it again. Did another week. And, so I'm having signals which are telling me you're tired, you're sleeping like crap, your body's hurting a little bit. Not like bad pain, but your muscles are sore, etc. Just do it anyway. And so I did about 3 weeks of that and I was like, I can do it. By that time, I was kind of feeling like fit again. Like I felt just in 3 weeks, I felt almost like I used to feel, doing CrossFit 5 years ago.
And you weren't picking up little injuries or anything?
No. And my sleep adapted eventually. My body basically adapted to all of it within about a 3-week window. And that was just a big wake up call again. It's like, you can do it. Just, you need to respect the law of adaptation. When you haven't been doing something for a long time, it's going to take time for your body to get used to it again. So I did it and I was like, maybe I can do this shit. AFC qualifiers pop up. Okay, let's do it. Let me set a goal. Like it wasn't that long, right? It's like 2.5 months post, I think, qualifiers. And then you're going to be doing the comp. That was another thing. I was like, okay, AFC, I've got to do 3 really hard workouts in a week. Like that's going to be more intensity I've done in the last 5 years. Did all 3 qualifiers, came out the next week and felt great. So I was like, okay, I got this. So for me, really the whole challenge was sign up to something, have a deadline, commit to it, put myself out there, try my best on the weekend, put myself in my athlete shoes as well, right? I spend so much time coaching athletes in competitions. I hadn't practiced the things that I'm telling them to do all the time. And I actually really wanted to do that. The things that everything from visualization to creating strategies to simulation workouts to reorganizing your week. I spend so much time helping others do this.
Yeah.
I wanted to test myself to see if I could do it myself. And I knew that I would learn. I knew that my coaching ed would benefit from the process as well by putting athlete ed through it. So really when it comes to weekend, I think before everyone in the gym was saying like, whoa, what's your goal? Surely you got to be podium, and I was like, no, honestly, that's not what I'm going there for. If I finish on a podium, great. If I finish 10th, great. If I finish dead last, okay, I got to really look at my training again and see what the hell is going on. But like, that's not the objective of why I'm there. So I really went into the weekend with a very free mind, with no pressure on myself that I had to do anything. With that said though, it's funny how when you get into competition, all those things kind of start knocking on the door again.
For sure.
So what was interesting was like, day one. So her name's Kelly. She does all the commentating. Semi-finals from Korea. She's awesome. And so she came up to me a day before the competition, and I was just chatting to her after breakfast. And she says, oh, this is your first competition back in 4 years. Like, wow, we're really excited to watch you. I was like, why? Why are you really excited to watch me? I'm like, there's nothing interesting to watch, honestly. And she goes, no, we've, the organizers have said that like, you're one of the guys to watch, so we need to really follow you. And I was like,
oh shit.
I was like, whoever told you that needs to be fired right now. I was like, honestly, do not waste time on trying to follow me.
So you're saying, did you start feeling expectation?
I went back to my room after breakfast, and I suddenly felt this pressure. That I was like, okay, now you got to perform. And then I immediately thought about world-class athletes, people like Olympians or like Wimbledon tennis players or golfers. And you imagine, I just had that from one person at breakfast. You imagine you've got, 5 million, 10 million people who watch you every week. And you imagine that pressure that you have to deal with when everyone's saying you should be doing this. Why is he or she not achieving this? And it gave me just a real glimpse for a second of like, holy shit. But just putting that into that context and thinking like how small my situation was versus what athletes actually have to go through, I was like, that'd be ridiculous. But for a good hour or so, it played in my mind. I had this wrestling match in my head where I was like, okay, you need to perform, you need to do well, don't let these people down. I was like, don't be ridiculous. Go back to your intentions. Why are you here? It's got nothing to do with that. And I had this wrestling match, in the 24 hours leading up to event one, that was like really uncomfortable.
It's so funny when you mention that, because this is why I hate when seeing professional athletes interact with little kids, and the little kids say like, you're my hero, and like, you're going to get the gold medal or the championship. And it's like, dude, don't put that shit in that guy's head. Like, there's enough pressure as it is. But they're made differently, right?
They
mentally,
they're trained to deal with that stuff, and that's how the best stay at the top. Like, they don't let that stuff phase them. I mean, whether they have those internal wrestling matches like I did, I'm sure they do. But yeah, it was just funny. It was funny because, I still went into that comp thinking I had clear expectations and intentions that had nothing to do with leaderboard. And the moment one person said, oh, you're going to do really well, I suddenly felt this like weight that only I had put on my own shoulders. And that could have been something that was very crippling for my performance if I let that, consume me too much.
Well, I mean, now that we're there, let's talk about how things panned out, right? We had our preparation, we had clarity or some clarity on what our intentions and goals are. And then it was the competition itself. So we had 3 days of competition, 4 events. First, they had one event that was the Ultra X, which is a big obstacle course race and run and row and all these different things, about an hour long of a workout. Then the second day we had one event. It was a sandbag, rope climb, and box jump overs. And then the last day, that Sunday, was 2 events: a morning workout of GHD, sit-ups, wall walks, and bar muscle ups, and then a final sprint of snatches, shoulder overheads, and dumbbell walking lunges. So what stood out to you there? Like, were those in your wheelhouse? Is that something that you think about? Strategizing and everything like that.
I mean, are they in my wheelhouse? That's honestly a question I try not to think about too much. I really, years ago, my coach at the time, Kyle Roos from Training Think Tank, I had a really negative relationship with certain movements in CrossFit. Strict handstand push-ups, shoulder to overheads, snatching.
Yeah.
And so, I had this narrative in my head that every time I would talk to him about those movements or how I'm progressing with it, or, if I would have to record my results in my blog, it would be very negative. Like, I suck at this movement. I'm really bad at it. Oh, like, this is, I'm just not getting really like.
You just walk into it with a defeatist attitude.
Yeah, exactly. You're not in it to win it, right? And as soon as those movements would come up in competition, it would be like, oh, this is a damage limitation. This is what you hear all the time, right?
Damage control, right?
Damage control, this workout, like, oh, I'm going to suck, but this other workout. So one of the things he said to me was that, he didn't say this, but it's something I really believe in is that, your thoughts become your words become your actions, and your actions dictate your destiny. So the things that you're thinking in your head will, whether you think it does or not, have a ripple effect into the actual things that happen in your life. And if you're always telling yourself that you're really bad at these workouts, or even that you're really good at these workouts, like, there is going to be a ripple effect in terms of the actions that happen. So, that was back in 2016. And so I made a conscious effort from then to stop thinking about good movements, bad movements, good workouts, bad workouts. So I don't really look at it that way. It's just when I see a set of workouts, my first thoughts are immediately, what am I going to do about it? Sometimes, still for sure, I get these creeping thoughts of like, oh, well, what's everyone else going to do? Especially the people like close to me. Like, I've got like we've got Dave Hughes, bunch of people from here all doing the competition together. Every now and then I'd be like, oh, I wonder how Chris is going to do this workout. Is Chris going to beat me in this workout? And I say the same thing with Dave. I say a thing about everyone.
Yeah.
And these things they still creep into my head, but I just catch them now quite early. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. That doesn't serve you. What are you actually going to do? Or the only thing you can control is your own strategy.
Right.
So I'm constantly having these wrestling matches in my head. But so to answer your question, at no point did I start thinking, this is good, this is bad. For sure, there's some workouts, you just got to be realistic. It's like, okay, there are going to be on the sprint workout, right? 65 kg barbell.
Yeah.
For like snatches, lots of shoulder heads and walking lunges. Like, I'm weak relative to my field. And I'm not an explosive guy. So whenever it's moved something moderate to heavy fast, like I'm generally slower than most people. So I had a realistic expectation in my head to say, like, probably not going to win this workout, but like, just give it your all and put a smart strategy and don't try and go unbroken like everyone else.
Yeah.
That's just not going to work for you. So all good. But I did know that there was other workouts like Ultra X. I like long endurance stuff. I like just grunt work and just grinding. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, that's going to be really fun. I'm looking forward to it. The next workout was sandbags, box jumps, and rope climbs. Again, just a grinder of a workout. I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Wall walk one, I was pretty nervous about, just because wall walks are a movement I struggle with.
It was also an awkward setup, I would say.
It was a bit of an awkward setup, but actually, having simulated that workout quite a few times, I got to a point where I was actually really confident in that workout, where I was like, I don't think there's gonna be many guys that can beat me in this workout. I went from being like, this is gonna be really tough to like, I think I'm excited for this one, but still had this like nervous question mark over it, just because, I don't know, wall walks. I'll talk about how I actually went down in a bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think going into the weekend, it was like, I was really looking forward to tests. I thought they were really balanced, and a lot of overhead movements in all of them, which typically like lots of overheads that I struggle with, because probably my weakest movement of all the things that I can do. And I think 3 out of 4 workouts had overhead movements in it. But I mean, it is what it is. You sign up for comps and you got to accept that you're going to have some workouts in your wheelhouse. You're going to have some that aren't. Sometimes you get lucky and everything's your wheelhouse. Sometimes I've done comps where nothing's in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And again, like, that's the case where if your intentions are attached with your placing and the leaderboard, and then you get workouts that come out that aren't your favor, like, it's going to be a rough time for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about you? How did you feel about all the workouts? Yeah, my question is, how did you feel about the workouts before the actual weekend went down?
I felt great about them. I thought my simulations were awesome in the sense that I always found something to improve on, and I felt really good about how I was breaking things up, how I was pacing. I'm an overexcited person. So when I start and I feel really good, then I'll roll with it. And I think I got caught in that so many times from the first event, right? The first event involved a 1,500 meter run to start, and I was feeling good, and I found myself behind the person who was first in our heat. And I was in lockstep with them right behind him thinking, oh, I'm going to get like some of his draft or something. I don't know if even that exists on.
So are
on
you saying that you like, did you get pulled out of your intended strategy?
For sure.
Yeah.
I got pulled out and like I was 2 minutes faster than my
on the first run.
On the first run.
Oh,
and then it like
just capitulated from that.
Well, that farmer's carries a 40 kg bag. It's like a tote bag, right? And I was simulating with kettlebells. 2 kettlebells. I thought if I can deal with this and that's awkward, surely this bag is fine. But then that bag was so unwieldy and was bulbous and it just didn't jive with me as a person, I guess. Long arms and short legs just didn't mix well with me.
Yeah.
Whatever. And it didn't go out well. So the first event did not go as planned. I even had in my head like, in simulations, I did a 50% simulation on the 30 thrusters. I did 15 unbroken. Then I did a 75% with 23 unbroken. I could fucking do 30 thrusters unbroken at the end. That would be awesome to like start off the weekend. Like that would be a good tone setter. And then I got to the barbell already completely fucked because I ran too fast and everything else fell apart so badly that I did 17. I was like, oh, that's good. And then like as soon as I hit 17, I was like, stop. I went to the bar thinking you'll still do 30 unbroken. But once 17 went and then I had a minute of doubt or a second of doubt, I just dropped the bar and then it ended up being 2 more sets, which wasn't terrible, but I just didn't feel great. Like, I don't know what happened is like, I felt like I didn't meet the moment or something.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking like, oh my God, Chris, like you're leaving your family for 4 days and you're not going to be with them on your birthday. You need to make this worthwhile. Like you need to show up and do well in this nebulous definition of what doing well is. And if you don't do that, then this is a waste of your time and effort and money. And
so would you say after that event, your intentions kind of changed?
Oh, it was rough. Like I didn't know what to, like, I think the next morning I was having breakfast and I was working on some social posts for,
you're not a happy bunny then.
No. And like, I was trying to be busy and I was busy and I felt like I was creating value for myself by doing this thing for the team. And I was like, oh, I can dive into this. And like, that'll show that I'm making it worth it here. And then Ant caught me and he's like, ask a simple question. How am I? And then I don't know what I said, but he could pick up that I wasn't doing well. And he's like, I don't know. I forgot what he said, but he was trying to basically like cheer me up a bit or like shake me out of it. I couldn't really shake it. And that, I think that's the consequence of not having a good intention and not being clear with myself about what I wanted to do. So when I wasn't doing well as an athlete, I was trying to do well as a community manager, and doing both is a full-time job in a sense of that weekend. It's like, if I'm going to be doing a social post, looking for photos of our athletes, because there's like thousands of photos posted a day of all our guys, I can't do both really well. Or if I do one well, then it comes at the expense of the other. Yep. So it was just, I don't know. I was wrestling with it. It was rough. It was rough. And going back to the idea of doing your best and the best isn't great. The second event, my sandbag one, with sandbag over the yoke and the rope climbs and the box jump overs, like I beat my simulation by about like maybe a whole round, and I felt really great about it. And then I saw that you and Hughes, you just blew me away in terms of, I think you guys were like 4 rounds ahead of me. And then that's when I felt like in the pit of my stomach, like, oh shit, Chris, you're not a good athlete. Like you're not, like, I've been dealing with this for a long time. Like I was always a short, scrawny kid in high school. I'd never looked very athletic, and it's not that I was uncoordinated. I just felt like I was like the runt of the litter at school and stuff like that. Like I remember I couldn't touch the floor. My feet couldn't touch the floor, and I was sitting at my school chair until I was about maybe 6th, 7th grade, which is very late.
Yeah.
And I felt like with CrossFit, I found something that I was good at.
People.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And this competition, like maybe it's just my time that like, maybe it's not worth competing anymore. Like my body hurts. I'm not mentally there. Why am I here? I miss my family. What is it that I'm doing here? And even on the last day, and it was nice because I think Hughes yelled at Kelly that it was my birthday, and then she like interviewed me afterwards. And then that's also the event where I wore like our process polo and looked like a fucking real estate agent out on the comp floor. And then for me, it was nice to get the attention, and I got interviewed afterwards. But then I felt like, is the only attention I'm getting in the sport is not because I'm a good athlete, but because like I'm a clown, right? Or like I'm putting myself out there as an entertainer rather than an actual worthy person on the competition floor. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what this means.
But would you not say you brought that on yourself by going
For
out
sure.
in a pair of trousers and a polo?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is like I leaned into it. It's like if I'm not going to do well, then I got to make myself memorable somehow, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not. It's not that I'm not proud of doing that. I thought it was fun, and people ask me about it, and I don't know, but I don't know if this is who I want to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd like to take a quick second to talk about our sponsor, FETAQ. Now, FETAQ is a shoe company making really, really, really interesting shoes that I love to wear for the last couple of years. So this is an all-around shoe with a couple of insoles that you can get in and out for different training purposes. But this is a nice all-around shoe for running, for lifting, for gymnastics, toes to bar. Feels really comfortable in here, and it's a sweet-looking shoe. Just look at that. Real clean and everything. FETAQ is partnering with us to offer a 20% discount to all you guys with the code THEPROCESS, all one word, on their website. Get 20% off at checkout with free shipping. If this is a great looking shoe for you, it is certainly something that you should train in as well. Look good, feel good in these shoes with FETAQ. What is your reaction to that? Because I don't know how to parse that in my head.
I can understand why you maybe did that on that last event.
Yeah.
Like knowing, and I think as well, like I knew that you were going through this roller coaster of emotions. But in the moment, like you're the only one to get yourself out of it, right? Yeah. You're aware of it. And it's a reflection time like now that, you're going to get some very valuable lessons out of it.
Yeah.
But I think just in terms of that, I can understand why it was like, well, nothing has gone the way I want it to go.
Yeah.
Why don't we have a little bit of fun here in that last workout? But my question is to you though, did you end up performing better on that last workout because you took the pressure off trying to perform well?
I did better
than
my simulation, but I didn't strategize it well at all.
Yeah. Your strategy was terrible.
It was terrible. I tried to go unbroken as long as I could. I was like, fuck it. 10 snatches from the floor and then 20 shoulder overhead at 65 kg. And I did the 10 snatches and I walked to after the chest piece and I went from a snatch to like a shoulder overhead because I thought that would look cool, wouldn't it? I don't know why, but then I did 14 shoulder overheads. And then by the time I dropped that bar, I was fucked and I couldn't even do like lunges half well. No, I think it wasn't the negativity gone of the pressure to compete. It was more just like, I don't know what I'm doing here, so I'm just gonna roll with what I have in front of me and just try to put on a.
I honestly think you nailed it. You nailed it on the head at the start of this whole podcast, which is that your biggest piece of advice to someone is make sure you have clarity on why you're doing something.
Yeah,
and I think a second layer to that is that if you can make the reason why you compete something that is intrinsically motivating and not extrinsically motivating, that is very powerful. So what I mean by that is tying things like your placing, the leaderboard, how others perceive you, how many interviews you get, how many photos you get taken of you, how much, spotlight you get on social media or whatever it is. If you tie your intentions to those things, you just need to understand that those things are outside of your control.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
The leaderboard, yes, you can have a great weekend in terms of your own performance, but if other people are just better than you because they've trained harder than you, then they're always going to finish above you.
Yeah.
Right. Same for placing. Social media, it's whoever's behind the camera. It's their decision whether they want to take photos if you're not. Interviews, it's the person who's interviewing. It's their decision whether they want to interview you or the person next to you.
Yeah.
And so, yes, extrinsically motivating things can be good sometimes, but I don't think it should be, in my opinion, the sole reason why you do something. You need to have more intrinsic motivators than extrinsic.
Well, I mean, it's a great contrast to last year because last year I had the time of my life because I came in, I was really clear. I was like, I didn't prepare for this. And it's a gift to be here in the first place. Yeah. So I'm just going to give every workout my best shot and just enjoy the moment.
And I think sometimes, what we did, which was like really prepare for something, I think sometimes taking yourself through that really arduous preparation process, you build your own pressure up.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like, okay, well, I've done this workout 3 times now. I better I bet no one else has done this 3 times. I bet no one else has been as smart as me in the way that I'm prepping for it. So then you get to game day, you're like,
so true.
I'm going to blow these guys out the water. Sometimes we can be our own worst enemy, because the more we prepare for something, the more expectation we put on our shoulders. Whereas last year, you just rocked up and just did what you always do. And I think that's something I think about a lot with myself. It's like every day I train, I just rock up without putting too much thought into it, and I just give it my best. When I do a Saturday tester, just rock up and I give it my best. When I do simulations, don't put too much thought of it, create a strategy, quick warm up, have a bit of a laugh, do the workout. And if I can recreate that in a competition, that's when I know I'm going to have my best performances.
When you say that, the part that resounds in me so much was because this is the first time, I think in memory, that I've actually intently prepared for a competition. And I'm a person who puts a lot of expectation on himself, and it built on that. I wonder if, is it true? Some people shouldn't simulate, because I feel like that kind of in the preparation was great, but once I got there, it was always like, how did I do versus how I did in practice?
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, if I go back to the law of specificity, if I was just thinking about the coach, I'm removing the mindset part of it. Right. Doing simulations and preparing yourself and ramping up intensity is 100% going to be better for you physically, and potentially psychologically and mentally, than not doing the workouts and testing them. Yeah. However, the key is to not allow that process to negatively impact your performance. Yeah. That's the thing, the bit that you struggled with a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I struggled with it on workout 3, the wall walk workout, because I went in with all this expectation. I put in all this work. I had really meticulous hand placement strategies for the wall walks and how many steps I wanted to make it up there. And then actually when we went out and warmed up and we quickly had a chance to play on the wall walk, I watched the guy who, I was currently in second at this point. The guy was in first. Yeah. I watched him do a wall walk and he was struggling. And in my head straight away, I was like, oh yes, I'm going to smash this guy. Yeah. And then guess what my thoughts went to straight away? I'm going to be in first after this workout.
Like overall.
Yeah. I'm going to move to top of the leaderboard after this workout. And for the first time the whole weekend, my mindset going into that workout became about placement, and not about just executing my strategy. Right. And I had an awful workout. Yeah. I went in and I just, like you felt in workout 1, I just wasn't present right from the start. It was like, I just felt like I was so detached from my body. Mm. So I'm doing GHC sit-ups and I feel like my head is a million miles away. I might get no reps because I'm not putting it's the easiest thing, just tap
hands
the top
on
of the thing.
Pad, yeah.
It's simple. The guy told me before, I'm like, yeah, like this, no problem. And then just 2 or 3 times midway through the set, I just didn't do it. Yeah. And it just shows I'm just not really focusing on what I'm supposed to be doing. Mm. I was always thinking about the next thing, not even doing the thing that I was supposed to be doing. Mm. Then I'd slowly jog over to the wall. In training, I sprinted to the wall walks. Yeah. Then I get to wall walks and I'm slowly turn. I slowly drop to the floor and I'm I do a wall walk and I just rest for a couple of seconds. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Yeah. As soon as that workout finished and I just had a bit of time to myself, because I was like, that was awful. I just picked up on all these things. I was just was so not present in that workout.
So in the workout itself, during the 9 minutes or so that we were doing the workout, you couldn't figure out what was going on?
No, I was just not focusing on my strategy. Mm-hmm. I was focusing on everything else. I was like, where's that guy? Mm-hmm. Am I ahead of him? Then I'd hear no rep. I'd hear someone shout no rep from 10 lanes away from me. I'm like, why am I even listening to that?
I see.
How is that? I'm not really I got 2 no reps on wall walks as well. Yeah. Just silly little things.
I see. You're basically detached from yourself.
Yeah. I'm thinking about everything else but doing the workout. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee every time I did that simulation workout, all I was focusing was the rep that I was doing. Mm-hmm. Just focus on the rep, how am I feeling, strategy. Yeah. And I didn't do any of it. Yeah. And as a result, in training, I did that workout. I got 30 muscle ups. Mm. I got 16 muscle ups on the day, almost 50% of the muscle ups. Just such a poor performance for what I know I could do. And when I look back, all silly mistakes, one wall walk, especially when it's rep 9 of a set, that's 20 seconds. Yeah. Because to recharge and hit another rep, 20 seconds gone, plus a lot of energy gone. So I did that twice. That's 40 seconds gone. If I had 40 more seconds, that's probably my other 14 muscle ups done. Don't get no reps on GHD. So it's people were saying, oh, Dolomer was soft, the plastic wall walk sit. And I'm like, yeah, okay, those were just little differences, but That's not my excuse
Yeah.
for why I didn't execute that workout. My lack of execution was 100% in my head.
Mm.
And I didn't realize that. Obviously, you don't know in the time. You know, I walk off the floor and I was like, oh, just so like, that was so crap.
Yeah.
And then so I kind of just like walked off straight away, just did like a lap around the compound by myself and just cooled down. Then I was like, okay, what actually happened then? Like, what the hell went wrong? And I didn't pick up on the not being present, honestly, until the competition all finished.
I see.
But it was more just like, well, there's nothing jumping at me right now, but there's no point moping about it. Like, we're going to deal with this later. Deep breath, get back in there, have a laugh with your teammates, put it behind you. We'll reflect and figure this shit out later. Got one more event to go. And then I was, totally good. I needed that 10 minutes though, just to be by myself, to just have that moment, to just feel all the feelings, be pissed off, be frustrated, and then, okay, just got to snap back to it. But in hindsight, yeah, just not present at all.
Knowing that you had this misstep in the competition of lack of presence for one event, and whether or not it mattered to you, it might have cost you a spot in the podium, right?
It did for sure, but I didn't care about that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And that's your intention, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what your finish was. However, you did finish fourth, and that's worth mentioning. Did this competition give you any clarity on what you want to do moving forward in competition, in competing in general, in doing hard things, in the way that you approach training and competing and all these other things about the sport?
Yeah. It's definitely really lit a fire in me to want to do hard physical things a bit more.
Yeah.
So I would love to get back to AFC next year.
Yeah.
And I'd love to compete in that division again. Again, I don't think my intention is going to change. I'm not going back there to be like, I need to get revenge and get on the podium. No, I don't care about that. I'm not going to be changing up the way that I train. Like, I'm still going to be following the compete program.
Right.
I'm still going to be training once a day, 5-6 days a week. That is 100% the plan. A lot of people leave these comps and like, I need to step up and be better. No, I'm still going to do what I did this year. I think definitely I can expose myself to a bit more intensity year round. I think I basically did, for the 2 months leading out to AFC, I was like, okay, stop being a pussyhead, train a bit harder because you got a comp coming up.
Yeah.
But now I just love to like keep myself exposed to a bit more intensity all year round. So I think naturally that alone would make me fitter next year than I am this year. Just if I push myself a bit more all year round.
Yeah.
I also want to do another sport or competition of some sort. I'm thinking about doing like a long endurance event. The reason I want to do this is because even in Ultra X, I started cramping in my calves and my hamstrings. And I always cramp.
I see.
Every time I do anything around 40 minutes or more. And I just think it's because I haven't really built a really long enduring system. So I think I'm going to do something like a half marathon or something like that. That would be the longest I've ever run continuously. So I'd like to set a challenge and do something like that, and potentially do a High Rocks Pro division.
Okay.
Like, I want to do that again. I did one a couple of years ago. Haven't done one since. So again, like picking a hard physical thing, but not necessarily CrossFit. And then, I want to do AFC next year.
Nice.
How about you?
I say this without being 100% committed to it, is if I were to go to AFC again next year, I would change my approach, obviously, after having this conversation. I don't know if I would go next year because
you want to wait to be a 40 and 40 over?
At least, everyone? I mean, at the very least, the part that is costly is time away from my family. I just, I find it very difficult, or it's becoming more difficult to be away from them for my own things. If it's not like I have to be there, like I don't have to be at AFC, right? But
you can get Laura to do the Ultra X.
Yeah, I'd love to get her into CrossFit anyway. Like, that'd be great. But for me next year, I think what I liked about doing like build after semifinals and then going back into training without no expectation was just the joy of training.
Yeah,
I've trained in CrossFit and sports before that for the joy of training and not so much. I've trained everything for competition, right? If it was the sport of weightlifting, it's because I wanted to compete. Right. And if it was when I was doing triathlon training or when I was wrestling and swimming and water polo, those different things, it was because there was a competition schedule. So that was my main motivator. And this year for like 5 months, the first time I was training just to enjoy the process of training. And I think I like that more right now. I don't need to put pressure on myself on my training the way I do put pressure on myself on work and parenting and being a husband and stuff like that. So I don't want to put any unnecessary expectations on myself. And that's my intention is like, I want to just like training and being with my friends on the floor.
Yeah.
Like I did a class today at the 12:30 class here at Coastal, and it was a great time, catching up with people that I know and meeting new people in the class, and just like rooting for each other and just going hard on the assault bike because that's what we were supposed to do.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't because I was preparing for a competition. So I want to do that. The other thing is I did reach out to Kelly about the idea of like emceeing events and stuff. I don't know. Like I like talking and stuff and like, getting a crowd all hyped up and stuff. That used to be something that I used to do in the past. So maybe
you'd be good hype man.
Yeah, apparently. So we'll see how that goes. If anything comes up, any opportunities come up, but I don't know. Definitely competition wouldn't be my priority next year though. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I think for me, just the thing that you said there was that I think with picking, setting these targets in the year to prepare for something, I like that because of like the shorter, more intense build up and focus that comes with it. So like you right now getting back into training, I'm really liking not having the pressure to have to do anything too hard and take an extra rest day if I need to. I've jumped back in the compete cycle and I'm looking forward to testing our CrossFit Total next week. So little things like that. But yeah, just taking the stress off has been really nice. Putting my energy back into other things as well, like, like work and relationships and socializing and going out and having a good time. Yeah, those are all things that kind of like back on the agenda now. But I think, that's the seasons of life, right? You have different seasons with different focuses. And I think that's the way that I like to live my life. I like to have variety and change, throughout the year. And so having competitions, just allows me to do that.
Okay. I kind of like where I'm at right now.
Nice.
I would say this conversation, every time we have a conversation, we're just you and me on this podcast. I think like part of my consciousness like dreads the conversation only because it ends up being this wrestling of things that I have not addressed with myself.
Well, and you just know that I'm going to ask questions.
Yeah. And then it becomes like, oh shit, I'm on mic and I have to talk about these things that I don't want to talk about, in the sense that I don't want to confront these hard emotions or like these weird like feelings I have about myself, and I don't know myself super well. So I appreciate these moments. It's uncomfortable as fuck though. But I do thank you for creating the time and space to do that.
I think that's really good advice for everyone though, right? If you're going through a hard time in general, and you know that there are uncomfortable conversations that you're avoiding, then you need to having the people in your life to be able to go and sit down and just have those conversations. Because wrestling with those ideas and those thoughts and those emotions by yourself is really hard. For sure. Really, really hard.
And I guess the other part is like, it's different when I'm talking with you because you understand the sport and the kind of struggles that can go with it. I would talk to my wife about other things. Right. Like she'll lend a sympathetic ear to it. It's just, but it's only to a certain extent because she doesn't know the context for all these things. So
for sure.
So I appreciate that you have the sympathy as well as the knowledge base of understanding what it would be that I'm going through. Hopefully this was a worthwhile conversation for you as well.
Yeah, no, it really is. I mean, I always think even me re-talking about the whole process, and especially around intentions, my takeaway from this conversation, I'm really happy that I actually did have clear intentions, and hearing kind of what you went through was a good reminder to me in the future to always make sure I have those intentions before I move into things. Even processing, that third workout, and really just verbalizing where my head was at, because I haven't shared that with anyone yet, was really helpful. And I think whenever we get to help someone else, the ripple effect on our own learning is there as well. Like I always feel like I get to level up myself by helping someone through their stuff. So thank you for sharing so openly.
You're welcome. I don't know how much longer you're gonna wear that Santa hat, but
I actually completely forgot I was wearing it. Genuinely completely forgot I was wearing this.
It's okay.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas, and we'll see you guys next time.